So I'm Chris Cook, Director of Operations for California American Water. Thank you for coming out this evening. I know you have a lot to do, but important issues, and appreciate the participation. So thank you for that. And there is food and water here. If you'd like, feel free to help yourself to that too. So first of all, just a little background on California American Water. So our parent company, American Water, does water, wastewater services, and touches about 4% of the population in the U.S., so a big company. And then California American Water is in the northern, central, southern region. We're in the central region, and our water services provide water to various cities on the Monterey Peninsula area, along with other locations like Chular and parts of Salinas area. So we have a number of different locations where we serve water, clean, safe drinking water to customers. Tonight we'll be talking about various aspects that Josh will go over. One of those is the water supply project that you can see an overview map of here, and we'll kind of have different areas that can speak to different parts. There is, with that project, it's been a long time in the making, and there are aspects that can relate to the different communities. Last night we were in Castroville, and there's a return agreement for Castroville that is shown here, where the slant wells, if they pull 95% ocean water, the 5% fresh water gets returned to Castroville, whose wells have risk of saltwater intrusion. If there's more fresh water than that, it goes to the CSIP ponds too that can help the farmers. And then also affordable housing, trying to get more housing on the Monterey area. Right now it's on a cease and desist order with limited source water. And that can help for people who maybe live in Monterey, live elsewhere, trying to bring those people in, reduce travel times, and then also working on bills, low-income adjustment bills, customer assistance, those kind of aspects. So we have a number of people here today to help. I can do quick introductions of names, and then maybe Josh, you can get into more of the individual areas where questions can be answered. So starting with, first of all, Diego, thank you for coming. He's our translator for tonight, so if anybody...
Can I add one more thing?
Yes.
I'm wearing my interpreter translator hat tonight, but I'm also an agricultural consultant and a licensed PCA. So I'm going to pass some of this information to my clients that are farming now.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So thanks for the information. It's very valuable. The projects are really needed and they're amazing. And I'm sure my clients are going to like what this is presenting. So thanks for inviting me as an interpreter, but I'm getting the agricultural part as well.
Yeah, no, we appreciate all the information sharing that can be done. So thank you very much. And as Diego said, like, he is also an interpreter, so if everybody needs assistance with translation, he can provide that too.
That's correct. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, thank you. And then, so Stennis here, he is our safety specialist in the Monterey area. Aman Gonzalez, he's our senior engineering project manager, who's worked on a lot of water supply related items, San Clemente Dam removal, Monterey pipeline, other aspects. Jesus Sanchez, he's our manager of maintenance, or electrical mechanical parts here, various aspects of that with his team. Jack Wong is our director of environmental compliance, so any water quality related questions or environmental compliance he can help answer. Tim O'Halloran is our engineering manager for project delivery, so a lot of these projects like the Monterey pipeline there, improvement construction projects, him and his team are in charge of that. And then Josh Stratton is our external affairs manager, and with that I'll pass it over to Josh. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate it. We're here to learn from each other. That's what tonight's format is about. So we have different graphics and things we're going to talk about. All the experts are in the room, so it's intended to not be a presentation just by us, but to get a dialogue and hear from you. So feel free to ask any questions that you have. It's a dialogue. That's what we're really looking for here.
How many people here aren't staff?
It's the two of you. We had more last night, but not too many.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
We're really trying to. So we're having several of these meetings at different dates and times to try to reach as many people as we can. because everybody has different schedules and ability to get to these meetings. So thank you for coming. So the topics around the room, as Chris mentioned, there are various topics around here, so hopefully there'll be some questions from you, some interest from you. Operations, water supply and engineering, how our system works, how the water gets from the ground to the tap is a really big question. Most people don't really know the nuances of how it gets from the ground to one's home. Conservation programs, you think that the water company, we want to sell water, we actually want to conserve water as much as possible. It's part of the conservation efforts we have here. So we actually have very robust conservation programs. We partner with the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District as well.
So speaking of that subject, how's it going with the Carmel River? You're under cease and desist orders. You have to go down to a certain amount.
Yeah, I can.
So I don't know.
Chris
I don't
will
know-
get into
I
that.
don't know where that is, because you got an extension and I don't know where it is.
Yeah, maybe if you want to finish your first part,
There
then
you
we
go.
can get into that's a
Yeah.
great question.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's essentially it. I think, are you a
Somebody's
customer?
trying to get here, so I'm going to answer your phone real quick on that.
Are you a customer or?
No,
No, okay. Because I was gonna say, we have customer assistance programs.
California water. I live in Salinas.
Okay. The reason I ask is we do have, people that can help with, if you have customer assistance programs, some of the rebate programs and things we have for low-income customers. That's real important to us as well. That's one question that comes up quite often is if you put in a new project, it's expensive, how's that gonna affect the ratepayers? That's something we put a lot of consideration into how to we have a tiered
'cause-
water.
Yeah, because right now, some of your payers are getting a bill because they're not selling enough water. So they're getting I don't know what kind of fee you call it, but they're getting a fee because you have to make up the difference.
That's a matter of interpretation. People,
Well-
people feel that way when you get,
Yeah.
any bill you
Well,
get.
you're publicly traded and multinational company, you need to make so much money, and if you don't make it, your ratepayers, the shareholders suffer, and you have to do something.
Well, we actually, to that point, I mean, we have a tiered system that really benefits people who are conserving water in multifamily dwellings. Low users actually get significant rebates. The people who are on the higher tiers, who have lots of property and use more water, they actually pay the bulk of the additional.
Yeah, and I would say, I think what you're talking about is the RAM right now, is that what you're talking about?
Is the what?
The RAM is what it's
I-
called?
I don't know
water
the name
It's
of
just a
it.
general perception.
Okay, then if you use less water, what was the question? Can you repeat that?
I know people who are getting a fee because of, when you conserve so much water, the company's not making as much profit, and so there's a difference. And so it's not just here, it's other places. You get, people see it as a penalty for conserving water because you get this extra fee because there's not selling as much water as they would be if you weren't conserving.
Yeah, that's a great question. We hear that a lot. So first of all, it's not related to profit. It's a public or private water utilities, like various of the public utilities, they have the same adjustment mechanism. And what it does is water utilities are 95% fixed costs, 5% variable costs. So if you use, say, more water in one year than you use the other year, you still have the same pressure in the pipes, the same number of leaks, the same treatment plants, the same operations. The thing that changes is pretty much your electrical, your chemicals, a couple things change, but most of it is staying consistent in terms of the cost to run the system. So what happens is, and this is done both public and private, is to incentive, to try and say, okay, people need to conserve, but you also need to be able to run a system. What they say is, okay, you'll adjust the revenue if there's low consumption to be able to meet your fixed costs. So there is an adjustment there. But the one thing to note too is for California American Water, the operations, like I'm operations director, there's no profit on the operations side of things. So that part of it, it's being able to keep the plants running, be able to order the chemicals, do all of that kind of stuff. And so there's more fixed cost adjustments there, which for lower users you can see, okay, well, that can have an impact, but it's trying to drive conservation and say like, okay, we want everyone to conserve. California right now is in an emergency drought, which couples onto that whole aspect also, but you also need to be able to run your water system. So it's trying to do those. There is discussion, CPUC, whether it's going to continue or not. We'll see where that goes, but yeah.
So, to get back to the Carmel River, what's that status? I mean,
Yeah, so-
I haven't heard lately.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it had, the Carmel River was under an effective diversion limit, so that had 83 10-acre-feet of water off the Carmel River. And the effective diversion limit ended at the end of 2021.
Right,
So that is a calendar year. We do water years with State Water Use Control Board, so it was a little hybrid transition year. So the year we're in right now, that's ending at the end of this month for a water year, was down from 8310 to 4110. So it's like pretty much in half. Next year it's down to its base 3376. So we're really driving to try and, to try and create, alternative sources to offset that, because right now, we're in the middle of drought. We don't have things like aquifer storage and recovery to be able to rely on, and we have not only the Carmel River reduced, but Seaside Basin, which was our other major historic source, was in an adjudication. And so that one was also reduced by more than half. But we're trying to work within our limits. We have some ASR bank. We have Pure Water Monterey now to be able to use. So those, we've been so far staying within our limit of source water. But if drought continues, we would be at a deficit.
yep. I'll let you go on with your talk. I mean, I have a lot of questions, but if you want to continue.
Yeah.
No, this is,
So yeah, if you want
So
to continue yours first.
I think we're pretty much done. I mean, this is great. This is what we want, is a dialogue, and you've got a captive audience to answer any questions that you have.
So if you have 15 gallons of salt water, how much fresh water do you get out of that?
Yeah, so for the desalination plant that we would be proposing, it would be about 42%, I believe, or about half of it would be fresh water.
Yeah, and then what happens with the brine?
So then with the brine, the interesting part is, so with this project, the one of the key aspects for locating it is adjacent to Monterey Water's wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah,
So they have their treated wastewater that goes out through their outflow pipeline that goes out to the ocean, and that treated wastewater is essentially buoyant. Brine is heavier, so it mixes with those, and we had to do a lot of studies to be able to see the mixing ratios, and then also how to diffuse it out to make sure that it disperses evenly and that it does not have a significant impact. So that was part of what was reviewed in the EIR.
but as the wastewater is more diverted into recycled and infiltrated into the Seaside Basin or to CSIP, so the ratio of the water being discharged is going to go down, because that's what's going on. They're building up for this, so the discharge rate is going to go down, the salinity would go up, and it's toxic, and you're also concentrating pollutants. So I don't, just discharging it without any kind of treatment, I don't understand how that's not detrimental to the environment.
Yeah, so there is an NPDES permit that has to review all those ratios of treated wastewater to brine and the diffusion rates and all of those kind of things. So so that's reviewed in environmental reports and NPDES permits and other aspects. But I'm not the scientist that did all those studies to review it.
Yeah, I know your permit just got accepted by the board for review now. It's deemed complete.
Completion.
So-
yeah.
Is that why you're having these talks now, is try to build public support for your project? I mean, why are you doing all this,
Well, I think
especially in
it's,
Salinas?
well, I mean, you can answer that.
Yeah. The reason for that is, this project's been going on for a long time, and we've had these meetings over the years, but you're right, now that we're moving closer towards, application, where you want to make sure we get people's input, and this isn't a support gathering endeavor at all. This is, these questions that you're asking are relevant and important, and we've heard these over the years, but we want to hear from you, and you're lucky that you're here by your,
Yeah,
you have
I'm
a captive audience.
surprised.
It varies by night.
Thank you, staff.
We've had some that have a lot, some that are less, so it varies by night.
Yeah, I know public meetings are a hit and miss, you get people or you don't.
Yeah, so we have cards that we can give people if you're hesitant to speak up in a room, like sometimes that's more difficult to do, that's why we have interpreters and so on to do this. So people can write down questions, and we take them all in, and we answer them all, and we get back to people. So if, I'll leave you my card if you'd like, of course, at the end of the night. If you have questions that come up after this, by all means, reach out, and that's what this is just hearing from people what your concerns are.
So what size plant are you thinking of putting in, and what's your cost per acre foot?
We don't have a cost per acre foot determination yet. I mean, we're still in the planning phase at this point. So we don't have that set yet. And the size of the plant is still,
Yeah, the size of the plant is 6.4 MGD. The CPUC is kind of reviewing that, or they're talking about a phase 3, but they may still be reviewing, but that's where we're at right now, is 6.4.
You have to deal with the coastal commission, so
Yeah.
they just denied a plant in Huntington, but that was a very large plant. I
Yeah,
don't-
that one was about 10 times this size. It
Yeah.
didn't have slant wells to protect the marine life. I don't know if it had the existing outfall on the carbon-free energy, but I know it didn't have slant wells, and it was about 10 times the size, yeah.
the Coastal Commission actually referenced our project in their application. So the fact that said, they said unlike Monterey, which has a slant well technology doesn't have the impacts on the ocean. They actually praised that. It's a great
Yeah,
technology.
the state's been pushing slant well,
Yeah.
hence that's what you're using, otherwise you'd use a intake.
But see,
you're-
that's part of this feedback that we talk about, and if that's what is the best course of action, if that's what people want, including the state, then that's what we'll do.
Yeah, well, that's what the state wants, so that's what you're gonna
Yeah,
present.
exactly,
You couldn't do otherwise.
Right.
So,
That's just-
but your discharge is via the wastewater treatment plant discharge.
Existing.
And that's what's got a lot of people concerned, is it's a marine sanctuary, and you're discharging a very toxic substance into, even though you say it's gonna be diluted, but that dilution rate's gonna go down over time because Pure Water Monterey is kicking in, and they'll recycle more and more of that. And especially, the only time they really discharge much is in the wintertime. It's not a consistent amount of discharge. The wintertime is more because there's a little bit less farming, but with this Pure Water Monterey, there's gonna be less wintertime discharge because they're gonna recycle it and inject it. So I'm,
Yeah, so there is
just a
like
little
oh, go ahead,
concerned.
sorry.
yeah, pardon?
I was just gonna say with like the discharge permit, that MPDES,
Yeah.
they'll likely have conditions on that requires to stay within, certain ratios and considerations with that. And there was a lot of modeling done with kind of the different flows to consider, but yeah, that's something that has to be considered and looked at, absolutely.
Yeah, and the cost of energy, so you had Duke, I don't know who owns it now, but the plant, Duke
Vista.
Energy at Moss Landing, I don't know who has it now, but now it's a battery bank, it's no longer a gas or coal burning
Right.
plant.
Yeah.
So what about energy? Where's the energy gonna come from, and what would the cost, because it's so energy intensive. I mean, technology is changing all the time. I'm reading more and more about it's changing. It's not necessarily what we're using today. There's other ways, and it uses less energy and all this stuff. But that's
Yeah.
theoretical. It's not
Yeah, so the
practical
energy.
right now.
Yeah, so we did look at solar panels on the site and putting every square inch with solar panels. And the challenge
enough.
there is with the location, there's not a lot of day hours of actual light. There's a lot of fog that's there, and then footprint wise needed, it wouldn't be that high of a percentage for the plant. So maybe someday we'd do it, but the benefits were limited with solar. We did through a wholesale provider, but with PG&E's existing distribution system, we're able to do carbon-free energy. So that is good. And then with the plant, it would be using energy recovery devices, so it actually takes some of the previously pressurized water, and instead of losing that pressure, it runs it through energy recovery devices to make it more efficient. So trying to drive efficiencies with any technologies that you can have, and you don't want to, for desal, it's not going to be, you have groundwater available, we'll just go and use desal. It's not that kind of a scenario. It's okay, well, our groundwater is diminished, we need drought-proof for solutions, we've explored the recycled water, so it's kind of that drought-proof base in a portfolio, but it's not the only option in the portfolio. We're trying to, you can see down here, it's like, this was the historic supplies 1/3 Seaside Basin, 3/4 Carmel River. As I said, those are both reduced by half. We're trying to do a more diverse portfolio right now, so it's not solely reliant on desal, but we do need that kind of drought-proof base for long-term sustainable.
And you bring up an exciting point. The Vista power plant, formerly Duke, it's the world's largest battery storage facility now. There's Tesla has one there, Vista has one on the same,
Right.
and it's pretty exciting that they're able to capture this much renewable energy and store it on site. And that's just going to become more common, throughout the state and the country. And the fact that, like you said, our technology, we're not using the intake pipe because that's not, has been shown, even though it's used all over the world, that's not appropriate for us here in our community. So we've adapted and modified to get the slant well technology. So we've got a culmination of multiple environmentally safe and friendly technologies on the project, which I think is pretty exciting.
So the scoop is that pure water Monterey is enough to meet needs for a while. So I kind of feel you all are ahead of the game, that down the road, there will really be a need for desal, but it's not now. It's not imminent because of the pure water project.
So we have 3,500 acre-feet of pure water Monterey right now. You add up, pure water Monterey, Carmel 3,500, Carmel River 3,376, Seaside Basin 1,476, Sand City 200. You add up the available sources in a drought, and you get to about 8,500 acre-feet. Today, it's about 9,500 acre-feet of customer demand. So we're still 1,000 acre-feet deficit in a drought. There is, I think, what you might be referring to is expanded pure water Monterey with additional water. And I do think that, that 2,250 would be good. I don't know how much would be available in a drought condition, but that's kind of a near-term, immediate need where we're supportive of it, but we still feel like we need the desal project and, to get to actual long-term solution. And it takes, in this community, how long have we been working on water supply solutions for? You can't look short-term for solutions. You need to kind of, my goal is to not just solve it for, the next decade, but ideally for the next generation, my daughters too. So, that's, we're supportive of the expansion, but we still feel like drought-proof needs are there. And the other part too is it's not just that 1,000 acre-foot deficit. Even the Seaside Basin, the agreement is that you'd have to reduce pumping by 700 acre-feet off of that to start to replenish it, because there's risk of saltwater intrusion like the other areas with the gradients. And now the Seaside Basin Water Master Board is doing updated modeling analysis, and they're finding that depending on the demand studies that you look at, it's either anywhere from 1,000 to 3,700 acre-feet of additional replenishment needed. So we have not just the Carmel River, but the Seaside Basin to worry about too, in terms of just getting it to protective water levels.
Yeah, saltwater intrusion's a nasty business.
Yeah, and especially when you look at our source waters, and pure water Monterey is indirect potable reuse, so it requires to go through that. ASR, it's storing Carmel River water in that same basin. Seaside native water is in that same basin. The expansion of pure water Monterey would be in that same basin. So basically all of our eggs are in one basket right now, so it's not something that you want to be just saying wait and see on,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a scary business. So I sit on the advisory committee for the Groundwater Sustainability Agency.
Oh, nice.
And so I'm kind of deep aquifers under threat.
The
And
Salinas Valley deep aquifer is very
much under threat, and so is the 480, 100.
And there's a lot of
400.
wells that are actually, potentially going, 480 going down into the deep too. Yeah.
Yep. So,
And that's why at the outset, you're kind of why we have these meetings and why Salinas, even though they're not, it's outside of our service area here, it's because the relationship between all the basins, you know better than most, that there is a relationship between saltwater intrusion in all the basins.
yeah, they're all, well, the Monterey Basin is the same basin, basically.
Right, and
So,
and we want people in Salinas to also have an opportunity to speak about something that's seen as a peninsula issue. Housing needs, there's not, you talk about the amount of water needed now, future needs for housing and so on, that's important to people in Salinas.
Oh, yes, but we're not your customer. So, so there's a lot that's gonna happen that it'll balance itself out one way or another. But I really think that proposal is just too early for, because there's other things in the works that'll cover things for a while.
Well, you've seen the modeling that shows the saltwater intrusion is increasing. I mean, we've all seen these things.
Well, it's slowed down because Ag's finally gotten their act together and they're not pumping for all they're worth.
See, I feel like
quite
it's
as
too
much.
late to do this. I feel like we should have done this a long time ago because it would have reduced the spread of saltwater intrusion. We've already seen wells go dry. We've seen more people going deeper to find water than.
Well, that's Ag though.
But it's all related, and so
Well,
it's.
no, it's not all related, because Ag is the 85% user of the fresh water in the Salinas Valley.
And they have a valid
And,
use to the water.
no, they don't, not when they're threatening other communities, they don't have valid use. And so through this groundwater sustainability agency, that's coming to the fore now. So no, you can't pump because you have a well. It's gonna start being restricted because of saltwater intrusion, because of the drought. So there's gonna be a lot coming down the pike that's gonna change how things are operated. So you can't say because you have a well you can pump, no, those days are gone. So, so it's gonna change and it's gonna cause a lot of heartburn because of the industry around here is Ag, and if you start asking Ag to cut back, then you're cutting back on the main industry for the Salinas Valley anyway.
Okay.
So that's gonna create a lot of heartburn, and rightly so, but it's gonna happen. Either we do it gradually and start now, or it'll be a catastrophe. And your desal plant is not gonna help that. So, so I have two hats on. One is the Salinas Valley, which just doesn't really pertain to, and where the desal plant's located, that's slated for a park. When the salt mine was closed down, not the salt mine, the sand mine was closed down, that was to go to Monterey Peninsula Park District. So there's a lot of conflicting things flying around right now, and I just think it's too soon. I really do. I think there will be a need for desal, but I think it should be publicly owned and not by a multinational. I'm sorry, you all work for a German company, so it's a multinational company, German. Quote, unquote.
It's not.
Yeah.
Well,
We're not a German company.
It used to be like 10 years ago or so, the headquarters is in New Jersey.
Yeah. It's a thing that's been floating around for a long time.
yeah, well, I'll look into that.
Yeah.
Frankly, the headquarters for this country might be in New Jersey, but there's headquarters all around the world, so.
Yeah.
You know, to the point of saying it's too early, things go from too early to too late real quickly. There's never a perfect time for anything, and so there are many that do feel like it's too early, let's wait and see, and we've been waiting and seeing for a long time now, and my fear is that we're gonna wait and see, and then it's gonna be too late. And so I think it's better to approve this now, get going, because we know that there's a need for water. We know that there's a water issue in the area here, and this is, in my opinion, the best solution, and I don't want it to get too late.
Yeah, but I don't think desal is the way to go. Oh, true, we may need it ultimately, but I think it's really the last thing to do. And I know Driscoll Berries have a desal plant in Baja. It's desal for just growing berries. So the cost is like $700 an acre foot versus here it's $3,000-4,000 an acre foot probably for desalination. So when you read these articles, the environment is taking a real hit because it's cheap to do this, but there's not a lot of regulation to help with the environmental impacts. So the environment's taken a real nasty hit in Baja because of all this going on. And then people who work there, they have to buy water. They're not getting this desalinated water unless they buy it from a truck. So your social equity is way out of balance there when you start talking about desal. And then also Monterey Peninsula has some of the highest water bills in the country. I mean, it's just, and then when you do desal on top of that, it's like, oh my God. the cost of procuring your water is gonna get even higher. So I don't see how the bills wouldn't go up because of that. And there's a whole big push to be publicly owned anyway, so then if you put a desal plant on top of that, it's really gonna get crazy. So I think you should be publicly owned. I'm sorry. Well, I think you should be working for a company that's publicly owned. Your jobs are safe, you know, you're not going anywhere, but just the ownership would be different.
Yeah, a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
But like, I think you had about 10 different things there, so
Yeah.
and I respect
And
your
it's-
opinion, so I'm not gonna,
It's
you
very
know.
complicated, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, and I mean, I'll hit a couple of those, but not all of them, because I probably won't remember all the 10, but I would recommend looking over here at some of the coastal access plans that are proposed. There's also, for that CEMEX site in terms of pedestrian access, signage, other things, and then there's dune restoration that would be worked on. So it's trying to open it up to the public in a way that it has not been in the past. With the kind of agricultural Salinas side of things, we also have some of the return water could go to CSIP pond, which I'm sure you know all about,
Yeah.
and you know that's agricultural. There's also, you know, between Salinas and Monterey, there's a lot of people from Salinas who work in Monterey, and there's been a moratorium on meters and housing and other aspects that don't allow people to live in that community where they work. So kind of trying to bring that in and avoid these long commutes of people, I think is important. But then I'm trying to remember the other parts, but I can't remember all the others. But yeah, you're definitely, you know, your opinions are things that we want to hear, and you know, we're not, you know, here to be, you know, aggressively pushing one side or anything like that. So, you know, duly noted. And I would say too that, you know, we can, as Josh said, like there's area paper and pens and other things. If you want to write down comments, we can, you know, spend time to come up with more thoughtful responses too, if you like, because I really appreciate kind of your insights.
Yeah.
So, but and I do think that for speaking of California American Water, I mean, they are a company that, you know, as I said, touches about 4% of the U.S. population. They do have a very high standard in terms of trying to deliver clean, safe drinking water. We work on the wastewater side too, and you know, trying to, you know, take that U.S., you know, throughout the state's kind of resource, and we pull on that a lot for projects that are big projects, for the resource that it has, for the Monterey pipeline that Amon worked on, and Tim. That was a $50 million project that was brought in on budget. And then San Clemente Dam that Amon worked on, that was another one of about that size that was brought in on budget. So, you know, being able to do that at times where you see other projects have double the cost, you know, there is benefits there too, so.
And you know, taking the,
Yeah, you've had some pretty major projects as of late.
you know, if you want to take the farming Salinas Valley element out of it, there's a perception that they touched on that we're this big giant company coming in to take over the water, and that's not the case. We've been here for a long time. Our obligation is to provide adequate, safe water to the Monterey Peninsula area and others. So that's our charter, that's our charge. And when our main water source, the Carmel River, you know, we need to switch and we need to find another water source. That's all we're trying to do is provide water for our customers.
We're under a state mandate, the cease and desist order, to stay under the Carmel River, so it's trying to figure out, okay, when a customer turns on their tap, you know, we have to provide that water to them, so how do we do that without putting restrictors on everybody's meter and other things that, as a water provider, you know, we really don't want to do, so.
Right.
we're
So
always
there's
trying to-
quite a few projects now that are taking water out of the air, but they're low volume
Yeah.
or low production. But you can get like a cell on your rooftop and you can get so many gallons of water a day.
Yeah, the fog collection was something that was looked at. There were even icebergs looked at being brought in, like a
No,
lot
it's
of
a
different
membrane,
ideas.
it's not the fog collection thing, it's a membrane that actually takes the water out, and I don't quite remember how, the mechanics of it, but
I've looked at those, actually, they're crazy expensive, and they
It
do-
might be.
If you have a remote cabin somewhere, they're great to collect water while you're away, and you can go,
yeah.
but, you know, the amount of, the volume of water is so,
Yeah, it's low, but there's other things that can be done, so I'm just not with you all yet on this. So, I probably will, you know, I'll probably eat crow down the pike, so, oh yeah, you know, I didn't want it, but like you say, it'll probably happen around midnight someday. It'll be like, oh, we're in critical phase because of the Carmel River cease and desist and the Seaside Basin, and all this stuff is coming to a head, but it's been known for a long time, and but I'm still not there yet, because we're actually exporting water from the Salinas Basin now by the treatment plant. So you're getting a heck of a lot of water from Salinas right now that I feel you shouldn't be getting. If I had my way, there would be no water leaving Salinas, and so the treatment plant would be even less.
So you're touching on on another issue, that there's so many different water agreements that have come and gone. you know,
Yes.
With us and Marina Coast, for example, to get direct with
Right.
it. Now, there's others that they keep falling apart, and because it's such a tenuous amount of water, there's not much there, that everybody's wrestling over the very finite amount of water that we have in our area here. And that's why we need to find another drought-proof, reliable water source that can mitigate all these tenuous agreements, and we can just have a reliable source of water. I mean,
Yeah, but
everybody's
it's,
wrangling over
if there was a way to deal with the brine without discharging it, because it's not just salt, it's pollutants. You're concentrating pollutants that are really, really toxic to the environment, and the brine on top of it, the salt. So you got this soup that's really nasty. And so to be discharging that into a marine sanctuary, you know, it's hard to swallow. It really is.
I consider myself an environmentalist. I
Yeah.
really do. I always have. I've been saving water my whole life. And as Chris mentioned, you know, we've studied this very closely, and we're not, if we wanted to, we wouldn't be allowed to do anything that's dangerous to the
And
environment.
that's a great question, though. What we can do is we can take that away from tonight and, you know, kind of summarize in better detail, like the environmental impact report, and the sanctuary was the lead for the EIS. And, you know, there are studies on the brine diffusion and that kind of modeling and everything that was done. So I think we could take that away and come up with some more responses on that realm, if you'd like.
So there's some small desal plants around. There's one on Del Monte Beach. There's, the aquarium has one, and I think there's a couple
We
others.
operate one in Kansas City.
Oh, are you operators of that one? So what's the volume of that one?
It averages about 200 acre-feet a year produced.
And what's the study about the brine discharge on that one? I mean, how is the brine discharge on that one?
Yeah, so that one, there's vertical intake wells along the beach that intake, and then you can think of it as a giant French drain in the sand itself where the brine discharges.
Are you having troubles with it blinding?
Binding?
Blinding.
Blinding, what do you mean?
The salt accumulates and it blinds them.
Oh, not in terms of clogging it or that kind of thing with the actual discharge part, but what we can get challenges with is there's a permit restriction on the discharge where the salinity level cannot be more than what is out in the ocean approximately. And so there can be a buildup there, and we have to turn off the plant to stay within those permitted limits, because we also have a limited number of wells to be able to, brackish wells to be able to dilute that. So we're looking at different ways to be able to mitigate that, but it is challenging with that system because you have to turn it off, you have to let that, you know, basically perched aquifer, you know, recharge and then start it again. So that method, you know, can work with a very small plant, you know, and production that it requires. If you're going to the scale of, you know, the whole Monterey main system, trying to have a meaningful approach on that one, it gets to where you'd be, you know, stretching miles and miles of beach to be able to try and achieve that.
Not feasible. So that plant might be toast in the future, because it's just not.
No,
gonna
no,
be-
at that size, it's fine, and we have ways of, we're gonna try and add in more brackish wells, and it could, when you're at a couple 100-acre-feet, that works, and, you could, you have a lot of options for it, but at, when you're at, not a couple 100-acre-feet, but, thousands of acre-feet, it's a whole different engineering,
Yeah, that wouldn't work.
yeah.
Well, it's interesting hearing about that and how that's going, so I know it's going, but I haven't heard anything about it, so thanks for the.
Yeah, it's kind of, most
update.
people in the, so you would know about it, but most people in the community don't even know that there's already desal plans like the aquarium has and like Sand City has in the area. And Marina used to have one, and,
Yeah. That was a pilot project, and they don't run it anymore, but,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what the aquarium's MGD is, I don't know what their volume is,
I think they just use it for their drinking water, so I don't think it's that high.
yeah. I don't know if they use it for their exhibits, I don't know.
No, they have like I actually got a tour once from them from behind. I think you went on that tour too, right? No, it was before, Mon, you did, yeah, and Jack. They actually have their own system that circulates ocean water.
Yeah.
And you filter that and run it through, and it's a very interesting, they kind of start up high and have a whole hydraulic system going with it. It's pretty interesting, it's nice.
Yeah,
But then they have to, the challenge is with ocean water, then their intake lines, you look at and there's like all these barnacles and stuff growing on them, so they have
right.
to
They
take them
gotta-
and other things.
They gotta clean it on occasion, yeah. So about, how much is the Sand City one producing?
It's averaging right now about 200 acre-feet a year, and our goal is to get it up to 300 acre-feet a year.
And then you're just blending that? I mean, are you putting that right into the service system then?
Yeah, it goes right into, well, yeah, exactly. You have to, once it goes through the reverse osmosis, because they took out so many minerals, you actually run it over like lime and other things just to
Right,
make
you
it
have to remove
non-corrosive. And then,
minerals.
yeah, it just
Yeah.
goes right out to the Sand City distribution system, and they only use locally about, like 80 acre-feet, so it actually helps the overall community right now too. They're developing projects that will use it, but for now, there's a lot more that's helping, and long-term, there'll be a portion still.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a whole different operation than the one at that old cement plant. Very different. So that's about what I have to say. I run water and wastewater plants, so I like hearing about the technology and how things work, but ethically I can't support it myself. And I always like to hear, you're always a geek, a gearhead or whatever, so I always like hearing about it.
No, I appreciate you coming and your insightful, thoughtful comments, and I think you gave us some takeaways to be able to, review and respond to, like Brian and other aspects, so thank you, appreciate
Are
it.
you running the Las Palmas plant?
Yeah, the wastewater plant, yes.
Are you? I used to work there.
Oh, you did?
That was my last job in the wastewater business, was that one.
Oh.
How's it operating? It was kind of it was a tricky plant to keep in compliance.
Yeah, when did you know Jim Bricker used to help with
No.
that before we took it over?
That was after me. I was
Oh,
there
okay.
till '99, and then,
Yeah,
That
well,
was
he worked at Green Line before the plant was taken over, so he was over there
Okay.
helping with the,
right,
like the cake and sludge removal and all that stuff. Oh, cool, yeah.
Yeah.
So you know all of that then. Yeah, those wastewater plants, they do, the wastewater operators do it all, like the treatment, the collection,
the labs, the grounds.
Exactly, you have to know it all, that's awesome.
Yeah, you did. It was a hard job. But I was just wondering how it's doing, because it was difficult to keep in compliance at times, so.
Yeah, they've just, there's updating permits of Title 22s that are, that are making it even more challenging, but we've done improvements and have to do more. It's not the newest plant with the trickling filter and
Right,
activated sludge and all of that. We were looking at MBBRs potentially, but we're looking at a couple different options right now, long-term, so we'll see.
oh,
It's
just use a
getting-
whole different technology then.
Well, yeah, we'll see, that it's getting pretty strict with the permits and trying to figure out how to kind of make it work, so, yeah. A lot of engineering studies, Lon and Tim and others are doing.
So you're still pumping the water up the hill and irrigating?
Exactly.
That was a heck of a project. So,
So you were there, were you there for a while then? Did you see it kind of?
I was there for about, let's see, when did I start? About 5 years, I guess.
Oh, okay.
They had just put the pipe up to the pond, up the top of Las Palmas, and,
Yeah. They were having, I got a video once of when the River Road fire was happening.
oh, yeah.
You know, they were looking at dipping out of that pond, and there was other stuff
Right.
going, it was interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
And then now we operate Indian Springs and Spreckles that are right in that area too.
Oh, do you?
Uh-huh.
Oh, Indian Springs too?
Mhm.
I knew you had the pond at Chular.
No, we don't have
Oh, I
that,
thought you did.
no, we don't, we do the water system in Chula.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So the water that's been treated at Monterey 1, is going to be used for Monterey.
Mhm.
What's going to happen when Salinas demand part of the water, because the water really, a lot of the water is coming from Salinas.
Yeah,
And eventually they're going to reclaim for the water. So and that's the biggest volume is Salinas.
yeah.
So what's going to
Yeah,
happen?
I agree with you, because one of the projects for the ag projects that we're looking at for groundwater sustainability is a scalping plant in Salinas
Mhm.
for the future growth area. So, you know, you take some of the fluid and treat it, and it looks like it would be another CSIP project,
Yeah.
but for the east side basin, between Salinas and the Gavilon area. That's in very bad overdraft and has a huge cone of depression. I mean, it's in bad shape, but that's one of the projects that's been proposed as a scalping plant.
Yeah, so it is a question that's been raised a lot in terms of people are realizing the value of wastewater now, and agreements are being, reviewed, and all I can say is I don't want to speak for other agencies on their agreements and
Right.
what's going on with those, so I have to kind of punt that one a little bit, but it's a question being asked.
But the fact is that you do need another source.
Yes, yeah, no, I think that, simply relying on the recycled water versus a sustainable base like the ocean that will always be there, not being the sole solution, as you mentioned, like we don't want to just default instantly to, ocean water, but we've done aquifer storage and recovery, we've expanded recycled water to the point where people are, definitely very, interested in where their water is going, so now, yeah, having something that is a long-term drought-proof like the ocean is something that for us as the water provider, I think is important, but yes, there's a lot of politics around the source waters, but it's something that I don't want to speak for other agencies on, yeah.
So there was the referendum to make you all a public agency, so where's that at now? Do you know where that's at?
So that one did not pass LAFCO. So from there, it, could go through an appeal process, it could go other things, but it's really kind of primarily, it's right now, I believe, with LAFCO in terms of more on the litigation route. And that's not my day-to-day, so I don't want to misstate that, but, what happens, what water management district decides to go from there, it's really water management district's decision what they would do. And if they try to keep pursuing regardless of the LAFCO decision, that is a multi-year process, and, something that could go on for quite a while, so.
The board did just go to find funding to try to put evaluation
I'll
on.
take your card, by the way.
Did you want to write down any questions, or you want us to just kind of remember what you didn't take notes?
Well, that's why I want the card, I'll send you an email.
Okay, perfect, great,
It's easier for me to do it that way.
perfect, I like that too.
And you said the board just voted
Yeah, they just voted,
evaluation?
I think it was $300,000 that they set aside to look into what it would cost to.
Well,
take-
Salinas is hooked up with a desal plant at Moss Landing. They're one of the backers of that one.
I don't know the status of that one.
You mean the People's Project one, or which
The
one?
which
Deep,
one?
Deepwater desal.
Oh, Deepwater
I think it's
Desal?
Deepwater. I think
There are a
that's.
couple that were proposing a
Yeah.
new project, or there's a Liberty one too, there's a lot of ones that were proposed, but have not really
Whichever
moved
was
forward.
the latest one, I think it was the Deepwater maybe.
Deepwater's
I'm
been
not
around for a
sure
long
the name
time.
of it.
Does it have an intake pipe to the ocean, or is it isolated on top of saltwater treated areas? 'Cause there are kind of a couple.
I thought it was, they were using the pipes from the refractory that was there, so it was deep ocean, I
Yeah, I
thought.
think it was Deepwater. And I don't know the status of that one.
Yeah, I don't know, you hear a little bit, then you don't hear anything for quite a while, but Salinas was backing research on that one.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's
Um,
scrambling for water, and whoever they think can find the water, if they're gonna support it. And
Yeah.
it's just tough because they have an intake pipe.
Yeah, so it's, the intake pipe's already there,
Right.
so I guess the permits that go along with it are probably still there, but, okay, well, anything else you want to tell me?
I was just gonna ask if you had any questions or comments too, or just listening.
I'm sorry, my name is Mark Kelly, you're,
Jesus Sanchez.
what's the first name?
Jesus.
Jesus, and you're?
Robin?
Hi, Robin. The 2 points you guys hit on really eat at me, because the Peninsula solved part of their water problem by, as far as I'm concerned, stealing 3,500 acre feet from the Salinas Valley. And now they want to solve a second phase of the problem by stealing 2,250 acre feet from the Salinas Valley. And I live on the Peninsula, but I think it's nuts. And so I just offer that anything that you would like to do, there's plenty of people in the Monterey Peninsula who understand that, given the fact this drought is not temporary, and we know the Blanco drain and the wreck ditch have been shut down for any use of water right now, and Pond 3 had all the algae growing in it, and yet the people over the peninsula want to still find a way to use it. And that's just not fair. And I'm doing everything I can to oppose the expansion of Pure Water Monterey, because I don't want them to get 2,250 acre feet of water from the Salinas Valley. And I think it's going to come to a head before the year is out. And so I think anybody who lives in this community, and I don't, but I respect your rights for water, needs to understand the implications of giving them another 2,250 acre feet. It's wrong. And in the long run, it may not be there anyway, right? If this drought continues, it's just not going to be there.
Yeah, this is more normal than not right now.
It is. And so I'm just wanting to say I agree with both of you, and I'm hoping there's a way to stop the expansion, because I just don't think there's any more right to take.
Well, to tell you the truth, I've been opposed it since inception.
Well,
When Gary Peterson was the one that signed his name on it, I was
Yeah.
furious with him.
I'm very familiar.
Yeah.
Gary Peterson and the signature. But the 2,250 isn't done by any means. And the water agency, to my knowledge, hasn't signed any contract for any water for the 2,250. There is no agreement in place at all. I think it's still possible to work with the supervisors and the water agency to say, we're not going to give you any more water. And I'd do anything to help on that. I guess that was a statement and a question, so I'm done. I think that's important. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's very important too. I've been against that since they first mentioned it, that water shouldn't be leaving the Salinas Valley to solve peninsula water issues.
Well, we have a chance to stop this.
Pardon?
We have a chance to stop this second phase.
Mostly talk to the board, I would say.
That's right. But that's what I'm saying. If you live in Salinas, though,
Talk to the board.
you have a lot more capacity than I do living over in Monterey. But I'm sure going to try to the best of my ability. And we have a supervisor that represents the peninsula, but you have two supervisors over here, 2 or 3 actually. And I think they need to hear from people who live here.
The big issue still, they still need another source of supply.
Hmm?
The big issue is that Monterey still needs another source of supply.
Yeah.
That's the real issue.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's why I've been talking about scapping plants and keeping the water in the valley, and I've been talking about that for 20 years, actually. So I've been there, still talking about it. I've had furious conversation with Gary Peterson over this. We weren't friends for a while there.
Well, he's gone.
Yes, he is. But I did from inception. And when I was operator at the treatment plant in Las Palmas, I was talking to the Salinas Council about keeping the water in the valley. I was talking about scalping plants then, and that was 20 years ago, just about. So I've been really on it, but nothing yet. Takes a drought. Takes a big drought. Saltwater intrusion and a few other things. Yeah, we're not very good at crisis management.
Or if you get one heavy rain, the memory goes on the last 3 or 4 year drought.
Well, unfortunately, that's gonna be the pattern, isn't it? Be drought, 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 and then you're gonna get a deluge.
Yeah, you need climate
Won't
resilience.
be able to catch it.
Yeah, and if you get one flash flood, it doesn't solve everything, so. At least here, we don't have, the capacity, we don't have big snow packs or
No,
dams or that kind
no,
of
it's
thing.
all groundwater. But I moved here in '95, and 2 days later, the Salinas Valley flooded. And so I moved from the East Coast, and we were hearing about the drought in California, and then we got here, and I was like, what drought? It was inland
Not
sea
right here.
in Salinas. So it was quite a welcome to California.
Yeah, 68 flooded in Salinas, there's a whole,
Yeah.
a few pictures of it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
It's crazy.
yeah, 95 was it, I think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Pajaro Levee flooded up there, and
Right.
people died. Yeah, it was a big,
Gosh.
Yeah,
big rain here.
it was pretty crazy, all right.
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately, that's gonna be more and more the pattern. And so what people are gonna be harping on is more reservoirs. Raise the dams at the 2 reservoirs in South County and build more reservoirs. That's gonna be, because when you do get deluge, you wanna capture it. And so,
Interlake Tunnel between Osceola and San Antonio.
right. And they're talking about another reservoir down there, upstream of, I don't know, it's probably Nancimento, upstream of Nancimento somewhere. They're talking about putting another one in.
I think it's on 400 Liggett, isn't it? I think it's.
Not San Antonio watershed, I don't think. Well, I don't know. But somewhere, one of the 2 lakes, they're talking about further up the watershed, putting in another reservoir. There's talk about that. So with the climate patterns we're having, that's what people are gonna be wanting to do, is capture it when we can. It's gonna be very interesting. I still think you all should be publicly owned. I'm sorry.
Now to your point with publicly owned, Las Palmas,
Yeah,
when it was run by the Salinas,
it was run by the,
they didn't invest any money on it.
no, they didn't. No, they wouldn't, and I got injured because of that. So when you don't invest, your staff can suffer, and I did, I got hurt because they wouldn't buy a cheap little part, and I got injured. So yes, if it's publicly owned, then it's gotta be assured that it's run like a business.
Just run like a business.
Yeah, it has to be. And some are very, very successful, like the wastewater plant in Marina is run very well. And that's publicly owned. So it can be very successful, but you just gotta charge the right fees. And Las Palmas didn't wanna pay the fees. So there was a big fight about that. And, yeah. So I'm sure you all got a handle on that now? You getting the right fees from Las Palmas to run it?
It's getting there. It's a lot, way more efficient than it's ever been.
Pardon?
It's way more efficient than it's ever been.
Yeah? Well, you're getting the right amount of money then, so.
Well, no, that part's still not there.
Yeah. Yes, publicly owned has its issues, but when done right, it's very, very successful. It just has to be done right, or, well, any business, whether it's private or public, has to charge the right amount of fees to make it work. So,
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that, but the likelihood for a public owned utilities run like a private business is very low. I worked in both private and public before, so, your comments is absolutely right.
Yeah.
So.
You have to have a very good board.
Yeah, but I think the American Water, California American Water is overseen by the CPUC in terms of the operating efficiency perspective. I think is a better model, I think, because it has a better oversight than public, city-owned, whatever, that can make a decision in their own, collect the taxes, whatever they want. So,
Well,
yeah.
I am a little hesitant to go too far into different topics and over here, so I think we'll again respect your
So
opinions and not try and.
I have you, Josh, I have your card, and I'll send you an email
Please do. Yeah,
with
thank you.
some points that you've heard over and over again already from people on the peninsula. But, yeah, I'm glad to see you getting out and about, and I'm glad you had a turnout in Castroville. They have severe water issues, so
Yeah,
They need to be-
saltwater intrusion risk, very high, yeah. it's
very high. So I'm sure they're gonna be desalinating one of their wells fairly soon.
Yeah, looking at desalting, but yeah, with this project, that could provide the water for Castroville, so they're very interested, because that was the large party there's a large settlement that,
Yeah. Yeah. All right, well, thank you very much. I wish it was a better turnout. I was hoping to have a roaring discussion with others.
All eyes are on you now.
I know, I said, God, why are you looking at me? I didn't realize I was
benefit
gonna
of the
say.
room, yeah, but I appreciate it, appreciate being willing to provide feedback and thoughts, so, thank you.
Thank you for coming, first of all, because, it takes time to do that. And the dialogue was, I thought, very nice. It's a passionate issue, people are passionate about this, and there are any number of ways that you could have said the things that you did and asked the questions you did, and appreciate that it was
Yeah. well-
collegial, we're all looking for a solution.
Well, like I say, I like the engineering, hearing about the science and all that. And so I'm familiar with Desal. They're also running that plant over there by the airport, the Clint Eastwood development over there.
Oh, the Tehama.
Tehama, there we go. Do you know how
That's a
that's
waste-
working? I mean, they have
I think
to-
it's working well, yeah, they designed it, I was hearing from one of the original developers, they designed it to a really high standard for the wastewater, like above even the permit at the time, so, I heard it's running well, but we don't operate it.
But
so
they
I
have to
don't know.
truck their brine,
Yep, yeah, I heard that.
and I don't know where they're discharging it. Do you know where they're discharging it?
Yeah, we
I mean,
don't
I
operate it, so I don't.
I don't remember that part, because it was some years ago, when they first built it, they had a tour. And so I went on the tour, but I haven't been back, and that was early 2000s, like, wasn't it, when they built that?
I've never gotten that tour, I gotta get a tour.
Yeah, hey, irate. It was a public relations thing when they first built it, so. Yeah, I saw it, and they had to truck the brine, and I don't remember where they were taking it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're taking it to the wastewater plant and goes out there, outfall. I don't know what they're doing with it.
Yeah.
But that's the problem with it, when it's not regulated. That's what's going on in Baja. Everybody's desalinating their water, and they're not responsible for the brine. So it's an environmental disaster there because of all this. It's just not, you need some regulations, you really do, to protect the environment. And when they're not there or enforced, that's a frickin' disaster, and that's what's going on there. It's environmentally toast, for right now anyway, but. So I appreciate the regulations, and I appreciate everyone jumping through the hoops to meet them, and they're necessary. And pain in the butt, but they're very necessary. And then people saying, oh, I don't want the regulations, I'm gonna leave. Well, you go somewhere else and do it, and then you're shooting yourself in the foot when you're not following good, sound regulations, because you're trashing your environment, and then you have to go somewhere else after that. So I appreciate what California's doing and regulating this and their decisions, and sometimes it's a little late, but better late than never. And, so I appreciate what you're all doing, looking at the regulations, doing your studies, very necessary part of all this. Because if you don't, it's just disaster, worse than what we already have, so I do appreciate it.
Thanks for acknowledging that.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's way necessary. Just costly and a lot of grumbling. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yeah.
appreciate it.